In an era before the internet delivered oddities straight to your fingertips, sideshows were the gateway to the extraordinary. These performers, defined by their rare traits, walked a fine line between ridicule and fascination. But were they truly freaks, or simply individuals embracing their unique identities? Join us as we delve into the strange and captivating world of sideshows, where we'll meet 15 circus freaks who actually lived. Ready to have your perspective pushed? Well, let's dive in. Number 15. Grace McDaniels. Winning an Ugliest Woman contest sounds cruel, but for Grace McDaniels, it transformed her life. She was born in 1888 on a farm near Numa, Iowa, and she had unremarkable parents and a normal childhood until her face began changing. Grace had Sturge-Weber syndrome, which is a rare disorder that caused a port wine stain to expand and warp her features as she aged. In later years, her excess facial skin drooped nearly 4 inches beneath her chin, impairing speech. After winning the contest in 1935, she joined F.W. Miller's sideshow. Early on, she tried to conceal her appearance with makeup, then later with a veil. Grace despised the word freak and disliked being promoted as the ugliest woman in the world. But once she began earning a stable income, she grew more confident and persuaded promoters to rebrand her, simply as Grace McDaniels, the mule-faced woman. That name stuck, and so did her legacy. Her story remains one of resilience and quiet defiance in the face of mockery. She was beautiful, not ugly. Number 14. Len and Ernie Defort. Ernie Defort was born with a parasitic twin that was attached to his sternum. It is a condition that made him both a medical anomaly and a sideshow marvel. The second body, lacking a head but featuring 2 limbs on each side, also had its own kidneys and a second liver. Ernie was billed as 2 boys with 1 head, and the second twin was occasionally named Len or Lester. His short-lived performance career was mostly limited to Canadian venues, where he attracted significant attention. In 1942, as Ernie's health began deteriorating under the physical toll of carrying the twin, doctors decided surgical removal was essential. At just 12 years old, Ernie underwent a demanding operation. Though he survived the 2-hour procedure, he fell into depression, having formed a strong emotional attachment to his twin. Eventually, Ernie adjusted to the loss and found balance again. Despite the trauma, he went on to live a full, stable life. Number 13. Al Tomaini. Now, calling Al Tomaini tall would be an understatement. He claimed to be 8 feet 4.5 inches tall, though Guinness measured him at 7 feet 4. Either way, he was massive. One of 7 kids, he was already taller than his 6'1" father by the time he was 12. Doctors blamed it on an overactive pituitary gland, confirmed through X-rays. His size landed him a job as a circus giant. In 1936, while performing at the Great Lakes Exposition in Chicago, he met Jeanie Tomaini, billed as the living half-girl, born without legs. Despite how different they looked, they fell in love. The circus promoted them as the world's strangest married couple. After quitting the road, they settled in Gibsonton, Florida, a town full of retired circus acts. They opened a place called Giants Camp and spent the rest of their lives away from the noise. Their story wasn't built on the stage. It was built on staying together, no matter what. Number 12. The Penguin Lady. Well, Ruth Menon wasn't someone you could miss. Born with phocomelia, her limbs grew short and her fingers fused, making her arms look more like flippers. She didn't walk, she waddled. That earned her the nickname the Penguin Lady, and she owned it. She'd show up in a 2-piece swimsuit that showed off exactly what made her different. But she wasn't just a body on stage. She could play the marimba like a pro. That's a wooden instrument, kind of like a xylophone. Her skill got her booked at big events like the 1933 Century of Progress Exposition in Chicago and the 1939 and 1940 World's Fairs in New York. Away from the spotlight, she had a life. She married twice, first to Largo and had a healthy kid, then to Earl Davis, known as Hoppy the Frog Boy. They toured together for nearly 10 years before retiring quietly in the 1960s. What most called a curse, she turned into her life, and she lived it very joyfully. Number 11. Madmoiselle Gabrielle. Madmoiselle Gabrielle was born in Switzerland in 1884 with an extremely rare condition called sacral agenesis, which left her without fully formed legs. Despite this, her upper body remained entirely symmetrical and well-proportioned, with a graceful posture and refined facial features. Her poised appearance captivated audiences and defied their assumptions. Marketed as the half-woman, Gabrielle entered the European sideshow circuit as a teenager, where her elegance and charisma quickly made her a standout attraction. In the 1900s, she journeyed to the United States, joining Barnum and Bailey's Greatest Show on Earth. There, she performed in ornate gowns, chatting with guests and showcasing talents like embroidery and music. Gabrielle was often photographed in high society poses, her beauty and confidence clashing with public expectations. Unlike many performers, she rejected portrayals of pity or monstrosity. Her presence reminded crowds that difference doesn't imply inferiority. She eventually retired in quiet dignity, her legacy lasting as one of grace beneath the circus spotlight. Number 10. The original human blockhead. Melvin Burkhart was a born performer. Raised in Kentucky in 1907, he captivated crowds with his uncanny control over his own body. He could contract his stomach so deeply it nearly touched his spine, stretch his neck alarmingly, and jut his shoulder blades outward in unsettling ways. Melvin also mastered his facial muscles. He could contort his face into a two-sided mask, grinning on one side while frowning on the other. He first revealed his strange talents publicly in the early 1920s via a traveling vaudeville show. Promoters were instantly intrigued and recruited him immediately. As he toured, Melvin expanded his act, eventually mastering sword-swallowing, fire-eating, and knife-throwing. A past boxing injury left him without nasal cartilage, enabling him to drive large nails deep into his nose, a stunt later billed as the human blockhead. This rare, dangerous, and jaw-dropping feat became his signature, cementing his place in sideshow lore as one of the most unforgettable performers of his generation. Number 9. General Might. Francis Joseph Flynn, aka General Might, was born in 1864 in New York and stood just 21 inches tall by adulthood. Promoted as one of the smallest men alive, Flynn was introduced to audiences from a young age. He toured with major circuses and exhibition halls across the US, UK, and Australia. Often dressed in ornate military uniforms and positioned beside full-size furniture to highlight his stature, he became a visual spectacle. Despite being marketed for shock value, Francis maintained a witty stage persona and won crowds over with charm and composure. In 1884, he married English dwarf Millie Edwards in a lavish ceremony that drew global attention. Their height difference added to the appeal, but the couple navigated fame with dignity. Flynn later settled in Australia, where he lived more privately. He passed away in 1898 from tuberculosis. Though known for his size, General Might's real legacy lies in the confidence he carried with him. Number 8. Ronnie and Donnie Gallion. Well, conjoined twins are nothing new, but Ronnie and Donnie were something else. Born on October 28, 1951 in Ohio, they weighed a combined 11 pounds, 11 ounces. Joined at the abdomen, separation wasn't an option. Still, they lived a full life. Though physically stuck together, they couldn't have been more different. Ronnie was cool and Donnie short-tempered. They even argued over politics. Ronnie stood 5 feet 8 inches, Donnie 5 feet 5. For over 30 years, they traveled with circuses, using that income to support their family. They stepped away from the stage in 1991. Later, doctors told them surgery was possible, But after spending every second face-to-face, they said no. Their connection was deeper than bone. They kept living the only way they knew, together. On July 4th, 2020, they died from congestive heart failure at age 68. They're still the longest living conjoined twins ever, and they're remembered for the life they built, not the condition they had. Number 7. Elizabeth Green. Elizabeth, famously called the Stork Woman, was born in the late 1800s with a distinctive facial structure, most notably a long, narrow nose and slim chin. Her features had a naturally bird-like quality, which sideshow promoters used to craft her persona, giving her the stage name that followed her throughout her career. Elizabeth performed with several traveling circuses during the early 20th century, including the Ringling Brothers and other prominent shows. She wore feathered costumes and bird-like outfits to amplify her image, often featured alongside other human curiosities in themed acts. Off-stage, however, she was known for her wit and easy laugh, challenging the grim stereotype often tied to sideshow performers. She sustained a long-running career, handled her own finances, and negotiated contracts, an uncommon feat for women in the field at the time. Though not as widely remembered today, Elizabeth Green's career stands as proof that even within spectacle, some performers steered their own story. Number 6. Otis Jordan. Otis didn't fit into a category. Not a torso act, not limbless. He had arthrogryposis multiplex congenita, a rare condition that froze his joints in bent positions. He couldn't move much, but his brain was razor sharp. He graduated with honors and even earned a degree through the mail. In 1963, after watching a local freak show, he walked up to showman Dick Burnett and asked for a shot. Otis had mastered using his mouth and 2 fingers. He even fixed appliances. Burnett watched him roll and light a cigarette with his mouth and hired him immediately. At first, Otis didn't speak much. He let his actions speak. Later, he started giving short speeches during his act. Otis never asked for pity. He brought skill, patience, and control, more than most people ever find. His body couldn't bend straight, but his will didn't break. He showed up, did the work, and proved that being seen on stage didn't mean being defined by a diagnosis. Number 5. Lucia Zarate. Lucia was born in 1864 in Mexico and is remembered as one of the tiniest humans ever documented. Weighing only 4 pounds as an adult and standing just 24 inches tall, she was diagnosed with Majewski osteodysplastic primordial dwarfism type 2. By age 12, she was already performing in the U.S., promoted as the smallest living woman. Despite her fragile frame, she owned the stage with focus and poise. She traveled extensively with her manager, appearing in dime museums and exhibitions across America. Spectators were awed not only by her size, but by her sharp movements and keen awareness. Yet her life was far from easy. In 1890, while heading to a performance in Colorado, her train was trapped in a devastating snowstorm. Stranded for days without proper heating, Lucia died from exposure. She was just 26. Though tiny in stature, Lucia made a powerful impression, one that left a permanent mark on circus history. Number 4. Crau Farini. Crau Farini, often marketed as the missing link, was born in Laos in 1876 with hypertrichosis, which is a condition that caused thick, dark hair to grow across her body. Exploited from a young age, she was taken from her homeland by explorer Carl Bach and eventually handed over to showman William Leonard Hunt, famously known as the Great Farini. Crau was displayed as living proof of Darwin's theory of evolution, an alleged bridge between humans and apes. While the claim was entirely fabricated, it drew massive crowds. Despite the degrading narrative, Crau held herself with composure. She learned English, adapted to Western life, and became a polished performer and public speaker. For decades, she toured with Barnum and Bailey and other major circuses, commanding the stage with presence. Behind the scenes, she was known for her intellect and sharp humor. Crow died in 1926 and was buried in Brooklyn. Number 3, Jenny Lee Snow and Elvira Snow. If you've ever watched the 1932 film Freaks, you've probably seen Jenny Lee Snow and Elvira Snow. They performed alongside Schlitzie and were billed as Pip and Flip. The two were born with microcephaly, a neurological disorder that gave them small heads and delayed brain development. Pip had the brain of an 18-month-old, Flip closer to 5 years. Though promoters claimed they came from the Yucatan, they were actually born in Hartwell, Georgia. Their parents signed them over to traveling shows to help pay bills. During the Great Depression, they were making $75 a week, real money at that time. The sisters were crowd favorites at the World Circus sideshow in Coney Island. They couldn't speak much, but their presence on stage did all the talking. Even with their limitations, they became icons of the era. And today, they're still remembered, not because they were different, but because they were unique. Number 2, Millie and Christine McCoy. Millie and Christine McCoy were born into slavery in 1851 in North Carolina, physically conjoined at the lower spine. The twins, joined from pelvis to tailbone, were known as the two-headed nightingale. Sold repeatedly during infancy, they eventually came under the guardianship of Joseph Pearson Smith, a wealthy and kind merchant who invested in their education. Smith ensured they learned several languages, played instruments, and cultivated an elegant stage presence. The girls toured globally, performing throughout Europe and even meeting Queen Victoria. Their act combined vocal duets with synchronized piano pieces, earning recognition beyond the novelty of their condition. After emancipation, the McCoy twins returned to North Carolina, bought their childhood home, and supported their family. Though exploited in early life, they later took control of their careers and finances, refusing to be reduced to their physical connection. They passed away in 1912, only 17 hours apart. Number 1, Ella Harper. Ella, widely known as the Camel Girl, was born in 1870 in Nashville with a rare joint condition called genu recurvatum, which caused her knees to bend backward. This unusual deformity made her walk on all fours, mimicking the gait of a camel, thus the nickname. Her rare condition quickly caught the attention of the nickel-plate circus, and by age 12, she was performing in their sideshow. Her act featured her crawling on all fours, and crowds were transfixed by her unusual mobility and appearance. Ella earned around $200 per week, a considerable income at the time, making her one of the highest-paid child performers. Unlike most in the sideshow circuit, Ella made the uncommon decision to step away from fame after only a year. At age 14, she pursued schooling and chose to live a life away from spectacle. Though little is recorded about her later years, it's believed she married and lived quietly. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon.